Hello and welcome back to WySLICE. In this last activity in our Conway's Game of Life series, we're going to take another step back here, and don't worry, we're not going to do any tedious manual work again, but what I want you to do is have a look and read through the Wikipedia page for Conway's Game of Life, because as we said before, this has been around for a while, right? 1970, so a lot of work has been done on this, and there's actually a lot of interesting things to discover there. So let's jump over and have a brief look together. Particularly, you can see a really interesting pattern here, and you might actually want to try this in the website simulator, where we have this so-called glider gun that creates these gliders that then move off into some direction. But in particular, here we have a pattern where we're actually ending up with an increasing number of alive pixels, right? So every time one of these gliders is created, it stays there because it just moves, right? It doesn't eventually disappear or anything like that. So we have something, as the name suggests, that is shooting off gliders in a particular direction here. And the other reason I want you to have a look at the Wikipedia page is because after stating the rules and talking about its origins, and more examples of interesting patterns here. Again, feel free to actually try these on the other website and play around and see whether you can use these as building blocks or functions, as we've talked about previously, to make larger, more interesting patterns. It also talks a little bit about the concepts that I have briefly mentioned before, that essentially Conway's Game of Life is equivalent to any kind of computer that you might be working with, in terms of it being able to compute the same kind of functions and essentially do the same kind of things that you might want to do with a, in quotes, real computer. And of course, this might usually be the thing that you might want to start with, right? Before you actually get into playing around with Conway's Game of Life, you might want to find out, well, what is it and what has been done and interesting patterns, etc., etc. But especially in the classroom, you know, you kind of have to motivate the kids as well. I have to motivate my students, and a great way to do this is to start by essentially giving them an example, or as in this case, having them play around with something that can produce really quite interesting and unexpected results, and then take a step back, as we're doing now, and have them kind of have a look at some of the background and get a kind of even better understanding, although I guess at this point you already have a pretty good understanding of Conway's Game of Life, of this concept, and in particular also then make some connections to other areas of, in this case, computer science, and other completely unrelated areas as well that might be interesting. So have a look at that, have a look at the Wikipedia page, and again, don't feel like this has to be just a reading exercise, so feel free to take some of the interesting patterns that are listed on there and play around with these in the simulator that we've had a look at before as well.